Okay, I just want to get this out of the way because my last name is always mispronounced. I want everyone to say after me in unison, Oyelowo.
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 It's just yellow with 2 O's. It's really, really simple.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll give you that money later. Yeah, thanks.
I'll just have to follow you around, I think, and and do that thing. Okay, guys, I could not believe that Film Independent called me again to ask me to do one of these, and for this film, which I feel a really special connection to because of a friendship that came about because of Film Independent. Ava and I got to know each other. And we'll get into a little bit of that later if Ava feels like it. I was thrilled that I got to talk about this under this rubric of the road to Selma, because it really has been such a road. And it didn't begin with your first film. It began when you were little.
Wow, she's going deep.
I'm going deep.
I was like, when did it begin, Robin?
I want to know, personally, because I've never asked you that question, when you were little, who did you think Dr. King was?
Oh, interesting. Well, he was in a picture. First of all, hi, everyone. Happy that you're all here. Good to see you. And before I start, let me just say, I attended these. I still have my binder. You guys have binders, right? Yeah. I was hoping they still did the binders. It was gray, and it was filled with just information about all of the series, right? You'll go to the whole series. And I just was like so happy to have a binder that said director on it, right? Because I hadn't done anything, and I thought this is the start. I didn't go to film school. I thought maybe I can glean something from it, and I really did. So we come here really intent on giving you some stuff, and hope that we can do that, because this is an important time. So anyway, thank you for being here. Who do I think Dr. King was? Well, he was a man on my grandmother's great-grandmother's wall. It was questionable as to who he was, but there was a picture of him hanging next to Jesus on the wall, so I assumed he had some importance. But yes, just very early on, and as a young African-American girl, he's ambient. He's just around. You just very much are aware that he was someone important. I went to an all-girls Catholic school, was bused out of my community to go to that school, so there wasn't a lot of Dr. King education at school, but it really just came from being a black girl in the world. He's just a part of the culture in such an integrated way that I can't pinpoint the first time I heard about him. He was just always around and always important.
And then you studied in school what?
African American Studies at UCLA.
And how did Dr. King change for you?
He came to life in a way that he very rarely does if you only are being educated to the top line points of his life, which are that he had a dream, believed in peace, and died, which is basically what most people know. And but in studying him studying movement history so deeply at UCLA, it's clear he was a radical mind, a radical thinker, a radical tactician and strategist, a revolutionary really that's been homogenized into just this forward catchphrase. And so really, I grew up with more of a Panther ideology in Compton, South Central area. Panthers were more prevalent in terms of just, their ideology and their swagger being a little bit more badass than King. And so, when you're 18, 19, just becoming conscious of who you are as a person of color, you're getting educated to politics and cultural politics and gender politics and all that good stuff, there's something romantic about the Panthers and something a little soft about the King world and the civil rights movement. Black Power movement holds more magic, I think, for a young person until you really study movement history, liberation theory under the civil rights movement, and you really can see what's happened is this watering down of that strategy and watering down of those ideas to the point that it comes across as weak when really it was so strong. And so if there's anything that Selma does, it's trying to really reinvigorate King's ideas and the attitudes and the actions to what they rightly were, which was, phenomenal and strong and badass.
Yeah, and badass.
And badass.
And
yeah.
badass.
So articulate I am, and badass.
It's a necessary word.
Sometimes you got to use it.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so I think that what interests me about that is that it's the seed of the director's vision. As you're sitting there as a student in school and you got a paper due on Dr. King, you're not thinking, one day I'm going to have a Best Picture nomination for a film about Dr. King. So the beginning of that journey of that vision gets born there. Where does it go from that point for you? Is it buried deep? Is it something you're thinking when I grow up?
No, nobody was thinking about making a movie about Dr. King. I certainly wasn't. He was. But I
Yeah,
wasn't.
yeah.
I wasn't. I mean, I was just very much, the last time we sat on this panel, or a similar panel at Film Independent, was the first time that we met, and I was talking about, the urgent need for contemporary images of black people and people of color on screen. That there's something about the studio system that breeds and visions of black people in hindsight, and it's always historical and blah blah blah. And then look at me, I'm sitting up here with a. But
Hey, you know what? It's a place to start.
Yeah,
It's a place to start.
But I still feel that way. But until someone, and I still feel very much the same way. But King was different to me. King was set apart from the usual thing, and the fact that it hadn't been done, a film with King at the center, had never been made and released in theaters, just proved to be such a challenge that I couldn't let it go. But yes, no. So yes, definitely. I say it's a seed, but it certainly wasn't anything that I was nurturing or ever thinking I would do. If you asked me even a year ago, we didn't know we were going to make this film. A year ago today, we were not making this film. And to be at this point now where it's done all of it's done is really astonishing for less than a year. And so even a year ago, I couldn't have told you, yes, this is going to happen. This is my destiny. I'm supposed to direct this. But you just get on the ride and ride it.
Right. I want to talk about the beginning of your collaboration with Spencer, but you brought up something, and I don't want to miss the opportunity. You said he was thinking about it. Tell me about that.
Well, I was thinking about it because I had first read the script in 2007. It was on the blacklist, and Stephen Frears had come on board to direct it. And when I read it, similarly, I had a very peripheral knowledge of King. Growing up in the UK, I hadn't really grown up even with a photograph of him next to Jesus. I didn't even have that. But when I read the script, which was very different at that stage actually, but there was something about the man that really just lodged in my spirit, took a hold of me, and just wouldn't let go. And I just knew that I was going to play him before I left this planet. And that began in 2007. Stephen Frears did not agree with my conviction and did not cast me. But, when you know, you know. And he came and went. Paul Haggis came and went. Spike Lee came and went. And then it wasn't until 2010 that Lee Daniels came on board of the project and did hire me. Rigorous auditioning process, and I thought, right, great, that feeling I had in 2007, it's now we're gonna get there. And twice we were meant to shoot it. One time I was, I think, 15 pounds into my weight gain when the film collapsed. I know, feel my pain. It really was painful. I mean, at least if you're gonna be that blubbery, do the thing. But anyway. But no, it fell apart, and but I truly think I would have just let it go if I didn't have this. I mean, what I'm skirting around the idea of saying is that I really felt a call of God to do this. I mean, that's what it was for me. I've never felt this way about playing any other character. I've never felt this way about any other project. I wrote it down in my prayer diary on the 24th of July, 2007, because I was so shocked at an absolute knowing that I was going to play this role in this film. You know, I was a British actor, hadn't done any Hollywood movies at that stage. What on earth was I thinking? But I just knew. So anyway, Lee left the film. We did The Butler instead. To the point, this is how much this thing started to mock me. I actually even have a scene opposite Dr. King in The Butler. You know, like Nelson Ellis is playing Dr. King. I'm sad that if you watch The Butler again, I am so pissed in that scene because it's completely bad acting because I'm just like, really? Was this what the vision was, Lord, in 2007? But anyway, so, you know, we did The Butler instead. And then I had done Middle of Nowhere with this incredible force of nature and knew that this was the way to go. And we had done Middle of Nowhere was a $200,000 film. That's a tough sell when it's a $20 million movie and you go as not a movie star to the studio and say, look, she's great, she's fantastic, honestly, this is the way to go. But after quite a bit of cajoling, they went for it. And so that was a 7-year journey for me.
Wow. It is not easy to make any film, but to make this film, I think, truly did take people writing stuff down on a prayer book. Absolutely. Yeah. I want to talk more about this collaboration, and we're going to look at a couple of clips. But first I want to talk about you and Spencer, because your collaboration predates David coming into this, right? But you guys have now done 2 movies together. Your first movie, talk to me about meeting Spencer. What was that like?
I have now done how many projects? 7?
Yeah, maybe 9 or 10, maybe.
Yeah, just whatever I direct, he edits, and it was just such a joy to find someone so early in both of our careers that we felt just so connected to. Spencer and I started editing in his lovely apartment he shared with 3 guys, and you know, I'd come in, and I think back at that time, it's just so special for me to have Spencer up here because he is my primary collaborator. He's the first fellow artist who I just connected with, and we became a team, and we have edited every single thing I did. I mean, my first doc about hip-hop, This Is the Life. My second doc about hip-hop, My Mic Sounds Nice. My first narrative feature, I Will Follow. The second narrative feature, Middle of Nowhere. My short for Prada, The Door. My short for Fashion Fair. My short for my Venus Versus, the ESPN doc. I mean, he can cut anything. And I remember the first time I met him, we were at Doughboys. Anyone know Doughboys? There used to be a place called Doughboys. I don't know, we met there. And he walks in, and you know, we couldn't be more different. I mean, look at this guy. And I'm sitting there.
I don't get it.
You don't get it? I'm sitting there, you know, cool and hip. This joker walks in. No, I'm kidding. Then he walks in, and I was like, this guy's an actor. I can tell he's like good-looking white dude. I was like, he's an actor just trying to edit on the side or something. So he sits down, and I said, so I start to talk to him, and he says, I said, so are you really an actor during the day or at night? He's like, an actor? What are you talking about? No, I'm an editor. I said, but do you act too? He was like, no, I don't act. I said, so you telling me you really just want to edit documentaries really for a living? He's like, yeah, that's my dream, to edit documentaries. But he was a true blue editor. He didn't want to be anything else. He just loved the process of editing. And so when we first met, we jumped right into this project, This Is the Life. And the main thing with Spencer is he makes me laugh. He makes me comfortable. He lets me dream. Then he cuts it down. Then it dreams more. Then he cuts it down. Go dream, Ava. And then he cuts it down. And it's just a beautiful relationship.
Yeah, I remember I had another job during that time.
As an actor.
As an actor. Just auditioning.
He played Dr. King, actually, in that
And basically I told her no to do this first documentary, and this was my first project. This is your first feature. This is your second project. And I was driving away, and there was this little voice in my head that was just like, call her back.
Yes, yes.
So I just called her back, and I basically kind of quit the other job I had, and you know.
And we've worked constantly ever since. I mean,
Yeah.
Spencer, I'm so selfish with him. Like, no one else gets to work with Spencer because I'm constantly shooting, and so
Yeah.
he is constantly editing. I
Yeah.
mean, next year, he's already booked like 3 projects already next year.
I feel like the luckiest editor.
Aw,
You know, it's like-
Spency.
I mean, if you asked me right now, if I didn't know you, and somebody was like, "Who do you want to work with?" You know, it would be you. I want to work with Ava. And that just kind of hit me a couple days ago. And it's like, you know, you're constantly working, and you're just like, we all look up to you, and you have so much drive and passion. And
Oh,
yeah.
Spence.
I'm
All
lucky.
right.
I'm
So,
lucky.
so
I'm
what
really lucky.
strikes me about this is a really important thing, which is that neither of you had done much. You found each other. You trusted each other. You went with that. You quit your job because you knew that this was right.
And there was no money
right.
in what I was doing either.
Exactly. So that little
Still not
that
any
little
money.
ping, right? Yeah. The truth comes
I'm hoping
out.
one day, you know, it'll pan out.
That little ping, that little thing that goes off is not something to be ignored, right?
And it's so important.
That's the thing you pay attention to.
It's so important, in terms of early collaborations to really focus on. I mean, yes, we all have to survive, but there's something when you feel a kindred spirit or taking a risk on someone that's just really essential. I mean, a lot of people ask me, how do I build crew? How do I get people to work for free? How do I do that stuff? You just have to come to someone with your whole heart and be real and be invested. So many people out there are trying to work. They want to build something. They want to create, and we just recognize it in each other early and value that in each other. And so, I know that how hard it is early on to find true collaborators. But if there's any example of when it can work, it's me and Spencer. I mean, because in the darkest days, when you're in the editing room and you were trying to figure out a scene and you did not shoot enough because you didn't have enough days, because you didn't have enough money and enough time, and you're dark days, and you got to try to make something of this. Or on Selma, we had so much footage. I mean, we had David; he's kinging it every day, and you're just like, look at these costumes, and what a far cry from the days when we didn't have enough footage to stitch together a movie. Having too much and being able to go in any direction and just being able to work that out together, it's just a testament to find your people, find your tribe. You know what I mean? Find your tribe, and they don't all have to be famous or experienced. It has to be a heart-to-heart connection. You might meet some kid in the Doughboys who looks like an actor. Just trust your feeling with it and grow your own tribe around your work.
That's beautiful. One of the hardest things to do when you're first starting out and you're going to make a feature film and you don't have very much money and you have not much reputation behind you as a director is getting cast. It's one of the hardest things that you can ever do is convince an actor to come, give of their time to receive no money. And so this is one of the reasons why student films, even if they're made with all the heart and soul in the world, if you're working with people who are not actors, they're students who are kind of like, I want to be in a movie, How good is that movie going to be? Sometimes you get very, very lucky, but a lot of times, your movie doesn't get into Sundance. So how do you get someone like David to come be in a movie with you?
Yeah. Well, my first, I applied for Sundance 7 times. I was rejected all 7 times. The 8th time I tried, I got in. I was rejected from every lab, writer's lab, director's lab. I was rejected from 3 times from film independent labs. Never got in. Now I sit on the board of both. It's okay. But I mean, you know what I mean? That lab game, I don't know if some of you guys have done it, that fest game, that submitting, that thing can get you down. I mean, I've done it. I've been there. I never got accepted into one lab, and the one time I got accepted into Sundance after submitting everything, we got in, we won. And we were not a 360 project. We were not a lab project. Same with Film Independent. So people think you have to kind of be ingrained or entrenched in these organizations, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But my first film was unaffiliated. I Will Follow was unaffiliated with any kind of nonprofit film education organization. It was just doing it, and sometimes that's what you have to do. I was talking to Richard Linklater the other day. I mean, he established the Austin Film Society. There was not one when he started. Sometimes you have to make your own thing with a firm. I don't know if any of you know about a firm, the African American Film Festival Releasing Movement, but that's our organization that promotes Black independent film, Black art house film that I created with some people around my first film. Sometimes you have to create your own systems, your own structures, but ultimately, for me, I found that it was the writing. I was able to attract Sally Richardson Whitfield and Blair Underwood and a few other really, really beautiful actors to my very first project. On the strength of the writing and on the strength of being in their face like this, telling them why they had to do the movie. I have people approach me like, I'd like to attach you to the project, or you see like the soft pedal thing. No, people respond to passion, not crazy, okay? Passion, all right? There's a difference. People don't respond to crazy, people don't respond to desperation. I did a keynote for Film Independent a while ago talking about the difference between desperation and passion. And there is a key difference. But to be able to back up your work and passionately communicate with an actor about why you feel they're right for it and why you're making the picture, really, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not as hard as one would think. I mean, we live in LA. You're not in Iowa. You see actors in the Starbucks. I saw Glenn Close getting the grilled cheese the other day. I was like, you're Glenn Close. You know what I mean? Like, it takes a lot to walk up to those people, and you don't want to do it in that forum. But certainly, there's context, there's Q&As, there's networking organizations, there's everyone in this town knows somebody to get a script to someone. I just think Twitter. I mean, I've cast people off Twitter. I mean, there are new ways to reach people. The traditional walls that keep us away from talent and actors have collapsed to the point that if you are really a go-getter, you can get to an actor. Okay, you might not be able to get to Bradley Cooper or David Oyelowo, but beautiful actors who will do good work for you. So I just think there's no boundaries. Don't put a boundary on yourself, particularly around talent. I think more than anything, what I found hard was crew. You know what I mean? Collaborators to be with you all day working on something really for no money. An actor can, at the end of the day, say, you know what, I've got this quirky, cool thing on my reel, and it might get to Sundance.
Right.
The grip, you know what I mean? Just it's different for the grip. It's different for the gaffer. And that collaboration with crew and a craftsman is the hard part, I think.
Well, David, you were very much an established actor when you were first approached about Middle of Nowhere.
I didn't approach him. He approached me about Middle of Nowhere.
All right. So how did you read Middle of Nowhere?
What happened? What had happened was I was on a plane to Vancouver to do reshoots on a film called Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And I sat next to a guy who was watching his iPad, and he was watching a show I used to do in the UK called MI5. And he turned to me and he said, "Is this you?" And he had paused the screen, and I looked and I went, "Oh yeah, that is me." And he said, "Oh, this is great. So you're an actor. I have a question for you." I was like, "Okay." He said, "A friend of mine is just asked me to put $50,000 into a movie. Is that a good idea?" I was like, "Okay, that's a loaded question, my friend. Let's talk about what is it?" And he said, "It's this thing called Middle of Nowhere, and it's this lady, Ava DuVernay, is directing it." And I went, "Oh, stop." I had seen Ava about 2 weeks prior on CNN talking about I Will Follow, and I had been really impressed by not just her ability to express her cinematic vision, but her vision beyond the film itself. You were talking about a film, you were talking about getting films out into the world and the possibility of that now. And I was really blown away by just the bravery and the front-footed nature of what you were saying. So it stuck in my head. I went, oh, that rings a bell. So this random guy on a plane invited me out to dinner. And I went to dinner.
He went.
I went.
So odd. He's odd.
I went to dinner with him. Well, he had a Ava DuVernay script.
Is that crazy or passion? Which
what?
one is it? Crazy or
crazy
passion?
or passion? Crazily passionate, I think is what that was. Anyway, I had dinner with this guy, and you know, we talked about all kinds of stuff, and he gave me the script. On the flight on the way back, I read Middle of Nowhere, and it quite simply blew my head off. I mean, it's one of the only scripts I can remember, and the reason I remember it is because I was reading it in a public place, i.e. on a plane. One of the only scripts I've audibly gone, oh, oh, like reading a script. You know, because just what was going on emotionally. I mean, as a younger guy in London, one of the things that made me want to be an actor was seeing the early work of Spike Lee, you know, seeing She's Gotta Have It, Do the Right Thing, Mo Better Blues. These were all completely outside of my cultural references, but I just felt like I knew those worlds for watching them, and those people looked like me, and you know, they didn't talk like me, but you know, I just, there was something about it that just really invigorated me. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to come to Hollywood, to be in films like those. And I had been in LA for a while then, and I hadn't read anything akin to that. Anytime I had read films that had black people in them, just my experience, I'm not saying this is the case everywhere, but they were stereotypes, they were caricatures. I didn't recognize them from my daily life as a black person. I recognized them as film characters and the kind of people I've seen in films, but not something I could just go, that's a human being. And I read this script and I just thought, oh my goodness, these, you know, again, I mean, a bus driver from Compton, that ain't me. But you know, there was just some, I knew him. I knew Ruby. I just knew these characters. So I got off the plane, and the only thing on the script was the title, your name, and your number. So I got off the plane, and immediately I called. And annoyingly, she wasn't there. So I think I left it. Did I leave a message? Yeah, I left a message. And then you called me back the next day, and I said, hello, I'm David Oyelowo, and I read
like who? What?
I read your script. I gave her the background of why I read her script, and I said, I just have to be in this film. And she said, oh my goodness, you were on my list of people to approach, but I just never thought you would want to do.
Because I'd never seen him in any black films. Right? So I thought, oh, well, he's one of those who doesn't want to be with the blacks. And,
that's the first time you've admitted that to me. Really?
Yes, I told you never done any black films, so I thought you would never do a small black film for no money. And you were doing major stuff. You were looping for Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Why would you go and do this? But no, you called and said, you know, if there's any, really gracious with the posh British accent, and said, if there's anything that I can do in this, I'd love to do it. And so David was the first one on that film, the first person on. And I remember saying to him, I don't know if any of you are actors or anything, but I remember saying to him, do you remember this? I said to you, you know what, brother? I appreciate this call. You know, thank you. I said, you know, by the time this gets to your reps, it might come back a whole different thing. You might not end up doing it. But, you know, I'm glad that you had, you know, a feeling that you might want to get involved in something like this. And he said, no. They work for me. I don't work for them. And I was like, well, okay. And he said, and I will do this if you want me to do it. And it's been that way. Take it. You know, you see, he put this film together. He was an actor without a director, actor without a film on Selma. He called, he advocated for the director that he wants. He's not Tom Cruise, he's not Brad Pitt. He's an actor who doesn't have the name recognition that you would think you would need to move a producer in your direction, but he did it to the point that by the time the Selma people called me, I didn't even have to pitch. They were like, Ava, would you like to do the film? It was because he had done that work. And the same thing he did for Middle of Nowhere. He saw a part that he wanted and he went after it. And you know, so often in this industry, we wait for permission. we wait for someone to tell us it's okay or go do that. And in David, I try to work not in that way. And David, I think that's why we're kindred spirits, because he works in that way as well.
That is so beautiful. I think that thing that you're talking about, that's the number one success trait for artists, is being an advocate for yourself and for the people around you that you know are talented. So tell me about working with actors, Ava.
Working with actors. Well, first of all, when I look at that scene, I see Spencer, because he's cutting up a storm on that thing. I mean, it's interesting. You know, it's an axis. It's four.
It is beautiful cutting.
Four, you know, and
you are keeping that emotional
thing going,
thread.
it's not
Yeah.
easy.
I remember it was one of the first times we were sort of challenged with the 180 line, you know, cross, and you know, when you start out, it's like, don't do that, you know. But Ava and I, you know, we do whatever we want. We just look at it and we go, oh, that works. So yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first times I was like, oh, that could work. You know, let's try it.
Yeah.
But I just remember, you know, that was like working with David. It's like, it's not trying to find the best take because everything is so good. It's just such a nuanced, you know, every little decision you make is, you know, has a ripple effect down the line, and it's just, they're all good takes. So, you know,
It's fun to sit there with Spencer because we just sit there and debate. Like, we'll watch that one. Okay, take one. Watch take two. Watch take three. Yeah, well, I like that part from one. Yes, put it together with three.
Yeah.
No. 3 and 4. No, make them turn. Go to 1. Go to 2. And then we're just, just cobbling it together. But with David, it's just like we can cut it 6 different ways. And it's like, now which one? We like them all. So,
it's a good problem.
It's a good problem.
So talk about that thing. He walks on set. What do you say?
With David, well, you know, interesting thing. Do you know Nkosi is here? Nkosi
Yeah,
is here. My friend, my good friend from, where are you, Kos? My good friend from college. We're from the same place, from the Compton, Linwood area. And so when David had to become a bus driver from Compton, I was like, well, let me put him with a real brother from Compton. And so Nkosi was like, what? You're making me talk to this actor? What? Do I have to? You know, and David walks up and says, hello, I'm David, and how's Compton?
It wasn't just Nkosi. It was 4 guys.
For my homeboy.
Yeah, and I've got the bus. Oh, I think that was the day I got the bus.
Took the bus from the Valley, his home
from
in Sherman Oaks,
to Compton,
to
feel the bus, and then I feel the bus. Well, no one rides the bus in LA, do they? And I got there, and there were these 4 guys, 4 brothers, and I mean that in the most beautiful sense of the word. And I literally rock up, and you know, look, this accent opens a lot of doors, I got to tell you, but that wasn't one of them. I arrived, and literally I see these 4 guys sat down. And I'm like, okay, how can I spin this? I'm not about to like do an accent for the whole thing because I'm here to glean who these guys are, so I've got to be me. And I'm absolutely certain I went up a couple of decibels. All the bass went out of my voice. Hello, everyone. Ava said I should come and see you all. And you could just see that literally these 4 guys were already sat. I don't know if you remember this, and literally they all just went. Like that. So, but they were very generous with their time, and
but that was the
thank you.
beginning of it. Yes, that was the beginning of it. And Kosi, a former UCLA linebacker, big guy from Compton. So thank you, Kos, for doing that. Because see what it turned into. But that's where it starts. Is just trying to just be a partner in the performance for me. And for David in this role, it was so. You know, it was a world that I knew, South Central LA, Compton, riding the bus, just all of what that was. Ruby worked as a nurse at night. Just knowing something about the characters because you write it, but then also just not leaving the actor to just, good luck, show up on the set with it, but to try to be a partner in the performance with them. What do they need? What can I provide you with that might help? And so for him, it was really, not from here, not really knowing what that world was like, riding the bus, meeting real guys from the neighborhood, people who would have been this character's friends, being able to ask questions, or not even ask questions, just hearing them talk. And so in every role, whether it's Middle of Nowhere or Selma, trying to talk with the actor about what their needs are. And some folks want to be independent and doing it on their own. Some folks you may be able to have an idea and say, what about this? How do you feel about this? Other folks, it's books. Some people respond to music. Some people want more of an experiential thing. It's just about trying to work within what the actor needs and not impose what you want. I think early on I'd like plan, I'm going to ask them to do this, this, and this, but that may not be that actor's process. And so it's just trying to be very open to how you can be of help. Oprah always says, she doesn't always say, but I heard her say a couple times, and it just struck me. She says, one of the things that she tries to do as a friend, when she becomes a friend with someone, is to ask them one question and to try to serve their friendship with that. She says, what can I do to help you? To her friend, what can I do to help you? And it's a beautiful, bold, huge idea, but to really say, I'm going to be of service to this person I'm in a relationship with as a friend. And so I try to regard all of the actors in that way. What can I do to help you be your very best in this film? And a big part of that is just becoming friends with people. I think everyone that I worked with, as I cast them, even when I didn't have any money, I was always selective in the people I brought into my sphere. Into this energy, this thing that you're trying to create. Mm-hmm. It's not just trying to get a name for a name's sake. It's like you're stuck with this person. You're in bed with them. Like them. And so, so in that kind of act of serving them as the director, to be able to say, what can I do to help you? And then really try to listen to what they're saying and figure out how you can connect those dots with them, not for them, with them. Is a part of what that process was. And then on that scene in particular, shot by the great Bradford Young, our cinematographer on that film, it was about, on a beach, we had a permit. It was one of the few places we had a permit.
We'll get into that later.
Yeah, few pieces we had a permit, but we had a permit. We're on the beach. It's quick. Brad's got the thing on his shoulder. Very skeleton crew, and trying to kind of get that 360 feel across and just hitting each one. Not two cameras. Easily now you'd do it 2 cameras and you'd be done, but we didn't have 2 cameras, so we're just trying to keep that whole thing together. And I remember we were trying to figure out the blocking, like how would they stand and where was the boy, and he's looking up, and just those things that you have to get very quickly on set. And part of doing is listening to the actors and see what feels comfortable for them. Whenever you go to a set, the death nail, she knows, she's a director, you go to a set with an idea about where they'll stand, is the day they'll be like, I don't want to stand there. It's like a kid. You'd be like, but no, you're going to stand here, and then no, I wouldn't stand here. There's a tree, and I would want shade. I would be here. You'd be like, really? Because I got a great shot line. Like, can you stand there? No, I don't feel like he would stand there. And you're just like, ah. So I've seen that happen as I was a publicist. I would see that nightmare happen with directors. So I just never made that mistake. You just need to come open, have your ideas about where they would stand, but you're
plan A, plan B, plan C.
C, and F, and all of those. Yeah.
Exactly.
But so just to jump off something you just said, that attitude of what can I do to help you, that's exactly why I felt so strongly that she had to be the one on Selma. Because in Middle of Nowhere, in the work there, what the unique gift of Ava that I found, and I've worked with some incredible people, but the very unique gift was asking that question and having that disposition. What it does is it gets performances, I think, out of actors that they don't even know is in them. When I watch Middle of Nowhere, you got things out of me that I didn't know were there. And it was because I felt safe enough, there was enough trust, which built up my confidence to the degree that I would make choices that I otherwise wouldn't. Because as an actor, you're basically in one of 2 places at any given time. You either feel, and this is the very rare disposition, is you feel so much trust that you are happy to jump off a cliff, or you realize that whoever you're working with doesn't really know what they're doing. Maybe they know what they're doing, but they don't engender a confidence in you that makes you feel like you know what you're doing. So you go into a kind of bubble of protection, and you basically end up giving what's a safe performance, one whereby you're not going to embarrass yourself. And that is never going to create great art. Where great art lives is throwing yourself off the cliff, not knowing, because that's what human interaction is. We do not know what we're going to do next. And you know, I knew I needed that if I was going to play King. If there was one thing I wanted to walk away from the experience of Selma feeling, is that there was something I plus King equals, which is revelatory. Otherwise, just go and watch a documentary. Just go and, you know, read a great book on him. But what is it we're going to do that you just see him anew? And the only way you do that is by jumping off the cliff. And I knew that with you at the helm, that is something I would feel every single day. And I felt that on Middle of Nowhere. And that's why I pushed so hard.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did.
That is beautiful. I think one of the hallmarks that I've seen in all the performances, now I think I've seen most of what you've done, is the vulnerability of the people. That is the most beautiful thing to see in a person. And scene after scene after scene, think about Selma, because you've probably seen it by now, how often people are vulnerable in the film. It's beautiful. You called me when you were very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Should I tell the story?
If you want to.
Which time? I called her.
I'm thinking of when we had the conversation about you can get a hell of a lot done in this world if you don't care who gets the credit.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yes. Well, the one thing I have to say is, Maria touched on it. I met Robin here, and so just in terms of Film Independent being a place where artists can meet and connect. I mean, you're in a room with other people that want to do what you want to do. There's not any excuse to walk out of here without meeting someone. You're going to be here for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, however long it is. Don't sit next to the same people, or maybe sit next to the same person and create something, or have the coffee, or connect on Twitter, or whatever it is. But, you know, this is in this big, wide city. You know, Film Independent allows you to be with like-minded people, which is literally half the battle. And so with that said, I met her. I might just one Sundance. It was after the middle.
Had just won Sundance,
yeah.
and I said to you, the agents must be knocking down your door.
Yep. And I said, no one's called. And she said, no, I can't believe that. And I said, no one's called. And so she set me up with her agent, set me up with a couple of other agents to help me do some meetings, and so that was one of the first things that she did. We continued to keep in touch. She continued to, and we connected as filmmakers at different levels. She's Academy Award nominee. I'm just getting started, but we are both women who make films, which is a radical act. And so we were two radicals talking about whatever we were talking about, and that's how we connected. And over the course of our friendship, you know, the first time that I guess I could say this now, it doesn't matter, can I? Yeah. Can I? About the Academy?
What?
About the Academy?
Sure, you can.
The first time that I heard that I was in the Academy, she called me. I was at a gas station in Westwood, and I was pumping gas, and Robin comes up on the phone. I was like, hey, what's up? And she was like, did you get the call yet? I was like, what call? She was like, did the Academy call? And I said, for what? And she's like, you're going to get a call? I was like, oh my God, I got it! I couldn't believe it, the invitation, and how much that she had advocated for me on that, because you need to have people on the inside saying, this is an artist that's worth being on. And this is before Selma, before anything, just a small $200,000 film. And so anyway, as Selma was getting started, there was a question as to whether or not the script, which needed some work, whether I would rewrite it or not, because at that point there was a possibility that I would not get credit for it because of the contracts that were previously in place. And I was wrestling with, am I going to put my heart into something that's not going to have my name on it? That was really painful for me as a writer to think about doing that. And she said, you said a lot to me, but I think the one thing that you did say to me that really stuck with me was, you get to do this. You remember saying that to me?
I said, one person is going to get to make a movie about Dr. King.
And you get to do this.
You get to do it. Do you want that person to be you?
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what the credit is. Do you want to put this in the world? If so, you get to do this, so go do it. And so she has a beautiful home up near Seattle, Vashon Island. Her and her husband, Nick, invited me up there at one point just to get away for maybe, was it like 6, 7 days? So it was 6 days, and we just cracked that script. She sat with me, told her all the things that I wanted to be in it. We just helped me outline it, just to wrap my mind around it. I had written scripts before, and they'd done well, but this is king. This is a civil rights movement. And
This was different. It was a personal story in a different way.
That's right. That's right. It wasn't just coming out of my head. There were certain things that I had to follow, actual history that we had to get into. Plus, I was working from an existing script that I had to figure out, no, keep that, don't keep that, no, this, yeah, that's good. So there was a lot going on in the script just to have someone to bounce ideas off of. That's why I say don't leave here without meeting someone. It's just all about that collaboration, that other creative energy that can push you forward. And so, anyway, I remember leaving your place with the outline done, like the first act almost written, like a place to get away. And so I literally feel like I wrote so much of Selma. I did the hard work of writing Selma at your place.
Right,
because
you got your arms around it.
You provided me with that safe space.
But I'm going to tell a story about Ava going into the woods.
All right. No.
So my husband, Nick Kazan, and I have this place, this kind of wilderness up, Washington State. And a few years ago, we started planting baby trees because the old trees, the alders, were starting to fall. And if we let them all fall and the deer were eating all the baby trees, there would be no trees. So we started planting these baby trees. But once you plant several thousand baby trees, you have to go out and make sure that the nettles and the blackberry vines don't kill them. So all of a sudden, this thing, which was just like, wouldn't it be great if we planted trees, turned into, oh my God, we got to go in the woods now and find the baby trees. So Ava was there, and so at the end of the writing day, what do? We go out, suit up, go out in the woods and find baby trees. So
It's like, what? What are we doing?
what do we do? We're going to go find baby trees. We're going to pull the nettles off, pull the vines off, because if they don't get enough light, then they die, and then we don't have big trees later. So we go out and we're walking over logs. There's no there's
from
deer.
Compton.
She's from
Okay,
Compton.
this is like,
I did not compute. I forget. Why do I forget? I forget that Ava grew up in Compton and had never been in the woods. So we're out there several days, several afternoons. We're doing it. And I go, how do you feel about the baby trees? She goes, this is great. She'd found hundreds of baby trees. I said, this is great. I've never been in the woods before.
she was shocked. I was like, who goes in the woods, Robin? But
Not
you guys.
only.
Like,
She had never been in any woods before. I mean, how many people in this room have never been in any woods before?
a lot, right? No?
All right,
Only
okay.
a few. Wow,
We
maybe
got
it's
one,
just me.
you know.
Okay, well, I'd never
You,
been in the
Vashon,
woods.
next year.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Okay,
But
so
doing something that, that I'd never done.
She was such a natural. You never would have known it. It's just like she just walks out completely open and does the thing. And so she was put on this earth to do the difficult thing of putting Dr. King on the screen for the first time, really the real Dr. King on the screen. So you were right, and you were right.
Yes, and you were right in pushing me to do it, and I mean all the more reason, and just creating, like I said, tribe around your work, because that you're truly that to me now, and so many times I've called you in this process. It's just very important to have people that you trust and who trust you and who have your well-being. That's another thing I say, and it's a little aside, but in that Film Independent keynote, I talk about mentors. People are always asking me, can you be my mentor? Or how do I get a mentor? Or mentor, I'm really just trying to get someone to help me with my script, and just this desperate kind of clawing for someone to help you. And the real way what a mentor really is, who a mentor really is someone who cares for you. So you can't walk up to someone and say, can you care for me? Because that's weird. Don't do it. You know what I mean? But when you're asking someone just cold to be your mentor, that's really what you're doing. And so a mentor is someone who recognizes something and you see something in you, feels something for you, and that only comes when you start to get to know a person or when you're working. You can only see something in someone if they're doing something. If they're standing still, You know what I mean? If they're walking towards you or around you or away from you, you want to be drawn to them. And so, you know, I said in that keynote, I have more mentors now that I stopped asking for mentors and I just focused on my work than I ever did when I was sitting there trying to get someone's business card to be my mentor. So just a little thing, and she's one of the big ones for me. And that's how it came.
That's really Well, the dirty secret about mentoring is you get much more out of it than the person you are mentoring. So do it when you know.
When you can, yeah.
Do it when you can. Okay, so now you have a script. It was a really good script.
Selma?
Selma was a really good script. And you wrote the heart of it. It was a beautiful job.
Thank you.
And then you made a movie, and you didn't have enough money.
No.
You didn't have enough money when you had 200,000.
Right.
And now
money when we had 20 million. It sounds weird.
Yeah, and so that's the text I get when you're down in Montgomery. I get a text going, I know it's wrong to say this.
$20 million is not
but $20
enough.
million does not go very far.
It really doesn't. It really doesn't when you've got, I mean, I don't know how many people have seen Selma, but how many people have seen Selma? Oh, good. Oh, that's pretty. That looked good.
That's right.
Churches, you know, filled with people, and they're all in period costume, you know, speeches, the marches with all those people that have to be fed and clothed, and all of the period detail, horses, tear gas, violence, stunts, green screen, White House. I mean, that 20 million, the other thing about the 20 million is it was the first time I made a film legally. Couldn't steal the locations, couldn't just, let's go in here real quick. And come on, David, come on, get on the bus and just drive. Couldn't do that. You know, couldn't say to Spencer, let's work all night. Like, Spencer's in the union now. Spencer, you got to, like, log his hours now. Like, you can't just do it. So it was, like, the first time I was making, like, a big girl film where everyone had to be paid properly and there had to be permits. And that, like, cuts your budget in half. It really does. And so there wasn't a lot there to do. And I think that's one of the reasons why the producers were kind of like, okay, David, we'll have her. Because we don't have that much money anyway. So have her come in and see if she can do it. But it did. You know, I really believe the best creativity happens within limits, and so those limits pushed us to try to figure out ways to really elevate the narrative, you know, without having all the bells and whistles that a film like that deserved to have more money. You know, the story of these real freedom fighters deserved to cost more than The Interview. Okay, so The Interview was made for $44 million. We made Selma for $20 million. And so this is how Hollywood values different narratives. But ultimately we got it done, so it don't matter.
Right, I mean, this is film independent.
That's right.
That's what we have to remember, is that this movie was made independently.
That's right.
It was a big number. 22 million is a big number for independent film.
Right. That's true.
But it, in spirit and in every way, it is an independent film. And a film like this was never going to happen out of the mainstream in Hollywood, ever in a billion years. So when you have something to say that is not in the mainstream, for heaven's sake, do it through Film Independent.
And it's worth mentioning that that's also why all those directors came and went. You know, they always wanted to make the film for about 20% more money than was available. I mean, the very original budget, I think, was 50 million. You know, when Stephen Frears wanted to do it, or that's what he wanted to make it for, and they said no. You know, because of the notion of how much money the film would actually make in relation to the nature of the characters, the subject matter, all that kind of stuff, and all of those directors basically walked away mainly because they just didn't feel they could make it work. And that was the genius of you and Paul Garns as well, our executive producer on this, who really cracked, not just cracked the budget, literally were like, how much you got? We'll back into it. Yeah. You know, I mean, that attitude is what literally got this film made. You know, I think that the producers, all of us involved, were quite battle-scarred and battle-weary over the fact of how do you get this thing done, and you just came with that can-do indie mentality that did.
Well, thank you. I say that for you all as well. I mean, it's the same thing. You back into the number. You don't do the budget like, this is my script. I'm going to do the budget, and our number is X. No. How much do you have? That's your budget. figure that shit out based on what you've got. Because as long as you are trying to get to some magical number, you are going to be not making your film. If you're at the point that you have a script and you are ready to make it, you need to back into the number that you can get your hands on. My very first film, made for $10,000. This is the life. The first narrative film, $50,000. That's what I had. It was money that I had saved for a house. To my mother's dismay, I made a film with it instead. It all worked out. She's happy now. But still, at the time, she was like, "Child, what?" And so, but that's what I had. So I had to write a script for that amount of money. Middle of Nowhere was the first script that I wrote. I Will Follow was the first script that I shot, because Middle of Nowhere was not $50,000 film. I Will Follow was a film that was shot in one location, because I had heard at a film independent event that the cheapest film to make, or the cheapest kind of film to make, is if you don't move. So I remember trying to think about, what kind of film can I make? What's a one-location film? So stupid. And I asked
No, it's a great exercise.
Was I talking to you? I remember we talked about it once. We were like, let's do a black 12 Angry Men. No, let's do a black Breakfast Club. It's just
Something
all
in an elevator, right?
Yeah, let's do a black. They get caught in an elevator, but it's black. Like, it was always a black version of that one film where they don't move. So bad. Just bad. And finally, my mother said to me, well, why don't you think about a time when you were in one location? That's something that meant something to you. And I remembered the time when I was a caregiver taking care of my aunt, Denise, who I love so much, in the last year of her life, when we moved into a house that she could spend the last year of her life. And so came up with the story about the day that I moved out of that house. And so that film all takes place in one day in one house. And the whole thing for 50 plus our executive producer, Howard Parrish, who came in with some equipment, and we got the film done. And that was how it all started. But it's just an aside to say, I'm trying to think of practical things to offer. The money thing, the crew thing, but really on the money, these numbers out there, they're not real. The only thing that's real is what you have. So figure out what you have and what you can get your hands on and make the film with that. That's my advice.
Great, and that is exactly what you did. Another reason you were put on this earth to do this film, because this movie was not going to be made for more than $20 million. So that's how it was. So you need Ava to come along and make that possible with your wonderful line producer as well.
Ava's so great because she's a collaborator and she's just constantly pushing. I'm pushing her, she's pushing me, until... we're never really satisfied, but, I thought, everything in your body's saying we're done. We have 24 hours to hand this thing into Paramount. And it's like pressure's on, and we walk outside. She's like, it ain't right. It ain't right. Just little things. Yeah. We get back in there and do it, and we push and push and push.
Especially when everyone's like, it's fine. It's really great. I cried or whatever, and we just were like, no, we cut that thing until the end. Yeah, just to get it right. But, such an amazing collaborator. The thing about that scene is when we shot it, we were never supposed to jump out. In the script, we weren't supposed to jump out and watch the world watching the attack. And it was something about just continuing to push yourself beyond the script. When you get in the editing room, it all starts again. And if you're with someone that just allows you to be free, in the same way that I always say I'm trying to be a partner in the performance with the actors, you really need an editor that's going to allow you to not judge you. And let's let you be free with the material again, because it's my favorite part of the process. That's why out of all of the people I could have had here with me today, I really asked for Spencer to be here, because for me, every director has a part that really works for them. Some love principal photography, some love to prep, some love, production design. For me, it's really editing, because I get to, it reminds me of being a little girl playing with dolls. It's like I have all the dolls, like David, he's the doll. And I can just make him do what I want, And Spencer's my friend who I play with, and I'm like, Spencer, why don't you have your doll do this? And then, it's like...
That's exactly how I always looked at it.
Yeah, you always looked at just playing with Barbies, But it really is.
First time I've been described as a Barbie.
But it is, you've got all this stuff here, and it's just, you can, it's like a puzzle, and you just get to figure it out and cut and cut and cut and shape. And so, anyway, it's never over. Don't go into the editing room. Early on, I did go into the editing room, and, you just follow the script. But it was really a lack of having enough footage and being, such a new director that I wasn't shooting enough because I didn't have enough time. That made us have to be creative on I Will Follow, because we just didn't have enough footage. And so we were just, splitting things and fracturing narrative and trying to be creative with what we did have. And that became our language, so that when we do have everything we want on Selma, we still are using some of those things like, crazy jumping the line. Who cares about jumping the line? People talk about don't jump the line. You guys know what that is? Man, do what you want. Do it, you know what I mean? Do what's gonna work. Film goers are used to, you're emotionally involved to the point that no one is, caring about that old school film grammar. It's lovely for some people. But, if you're in an emotional moment and something doesn't work, I remember sitting in a panel once, just watching someone on a panel, and it was Scorsese or Coppola. It was somebody big talking about a really big error that was right in the middle of a crucial shot, and that they just couldn't believe that the only version of the shot that they needed had this like something really wrong right in the middle, and they just decided to risk it and put it in the film. And most people don't even notice. Like when they said it, they played it, and you notice, like, oh my gosh, it's shocking. There's a woman naked in the middle of the shot, or whatever it is. Or there's a light hanging, or it's a period. Whatever it was something way wrong, but you don't even notice it. And the reason why you don't is because you're emotionally into the story. Most people are so into the heart of the story that the little mistakes that we see, the little film grammar that we're told we have to adhere to, it doesn't matter. It just has to feel good.
Yeah, once, I think we were kind of cutting traditionally in the very beginning, and then once we open that door, the possibilities, and so we go into movies now, and it's just like, we're ready to just get in there and rip it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's great storytelling. That's the one thing that I see, and having seen your process with the script and how some of the stuff that you were really holding on to and talking about, these things belong together and so forth. What I remember telling you, like when you get to Act 3, everything you thought was going to happen, that's not going to happen anymore. It's like that's what always happens. You get to, you're riding forward. You get to Act 3, and you're like, "Wow, I thought I would be in a different place here, and instead I'm going to have to do all these other things that I hadn't gotten quite to yet. I had to find a way to do it." And that scene encompassed so many things that had been small pieces. That you found a way that it could just be the dead center of the film, and all those pieces came. And so feeling that is why those other points of view enter, because that was the meeting place for all the principles in your giant ensemble of all the worlds of people who were watching. And sure enough, those people who are watching then arrive. That's how the world gets invited in. So a critical, pivotal thing, and I felt like in terms of the timing, you did a beautiful job of placement in terms of how much time before that, and then that big scene, and then because everything changes after that, right?
But you really know because she saw the 3.5-hour cut.
Right.
I remember after we got out of the first screening, Robin was like, and I was like, so, what do you think? We're just going to tell Paramount it's 3.5 hours. I mean, so... It could be that long. It's Dr. King. And she's like, yeah. Should we go get coffee and talk about it? I was like, no. I mean, you love it, right? She's like, not so much. But
I did love it. We
had like 2 weeks to cut it down. It was long. It's always long. But
yeah,
2 weeks.
But that was the thing. It was guts ball. And again, this is what happens with indie filmmaking. I think you guys had to turn around and show your first cut in about 36 hours after that. I believe that it was me and another person seeing it, and it was, and I remember saying to you when we had that coffee, you don't have time to fall out of love with your work. This is the problem. And I want you to talk a little bit about that. What are the phases? You're cutting your movie, you got your good stuff, you're starting with the assemblage. What are those epochs of what you feel about your film?
Well, you realize that it has to go through the gestation period. It has to go through that life. You can't make those decisions right away. Everything is precious, especially on this movie. It's like
this is history,
the
man.
Photography, the acting. It's like everything is so great, and it's impossible to imagine what you can cut out. But you show it to great people like Robin, smart minds, and you just gotta give it some time, and then those scenes will show themselves, the ones that you need to tell the story, and you're gonna have to, the kill your babies saying it's so true. But then you look back, it's like we didn't even need that scene.
Yeah,
we don't even like that scene.
Yeah.
Before it, we couldn't let it go.
No,
so
And then there was the one, we have a friend, Terry Shropshire, who's a great editor, who told us very early on I Will Follow, something that I always remember just to share, because I don't know if you'll ever be in a room with Terry Shropshire. Well, she'll give you the real deal, so I'm going to tell you. But she said, she's ruthless. She was like, what are you doing in that scene? I'd be like, what do you mean? It's a beautiful scene. She's like, that scene was over 4 minutes ago. She was like, she's like, what happens after this? Nothing happens after this. They say the same thing over 4 times. It's like, no, what do you mean? Don't you see David? He walks across, he looks great. Bradford, he's lit him, and then you see the production design, and she's like, but that doesn't have anything to do with the story. This is over, it's over, it's over. Find the end of your scene. When you find the end and the true beginning and end of your scene, it starts to just cut down and shape itself.
Maybe we looked at each other like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that scene was over a long time ago. We're like, yeah, we knew that. We knew it was over. We just wanted to see if you knew it was over.
So now the same thing happens. The scene ends in the middle of the scene. It just feels like the peak of the scene, and we're ready to move on. And we look at each other and go, Terry.
Yeah, we're out of here. Yeah. We're moving on.
That's muscular filmmaking. That's what I felt about the final cut on this. It had real muscle, because when it was done, it was done. And yet, there's a particular thing that you guys do, which is the lyric, the slower, that scene that we saw where David was so fantastic, so vulnerable. The wife not able to say, him not able to say. And just the choices of how you cut that, the slowness, you had to feel the tension in that marriage. Why? We didn't get to see much of that marriage. This was the scene you had, right? This was it. We had to feel the whole deal. And so the courage really to slow down there and know, yeah, I could cut the scene to 1 minute, but to know the not to was, that's a particular intelligence that you guys really share, I feel.
Yeah, one thing you realize is when you cut, you're telling the audience to think about something else or look at somebody else. But,
right.
When you stay on, you got to find that, the right time. But when you stay on, it starts to transform into something else, and you start thinking about it, and, it starts to become part of you as an audience member. And so, you challenge the audience to think about it instead of moving on. So you just got to find that balance, and that's how we do it. Yeah.
That's how we do it. And also something about that scene just to share about, because I remember when I was sitting in these sessions, I was so hungry to hear about how to direct actors. Everyone has a different thing that they're hung up on as far as a new director. And for me, yes, I was, intimidated about camera, but I felt very confident in being able to collaborate, being able to communicate my vision to the DP. I was going to be very clear about what I wanted. And there's a reason why he's called the director of photography, because you need to handle all that photography, okay? I'm going to tell you what I want, and then your job is to go do all those lenses and things that I didn't know at the time. Now I do. But at the time, I felt like, okay, I've got an expert here in photography. That's his job. I've got a production designer who can help me with this. But ultimately, there's no one between you and this guy. It's just you. There's no one who's going to be able to be like, use that lens or do whatever. It's just you got to be able to deal with the actor. And for me, that was something, it's like facing a blank page. There's no one who can come do that for you. You have to do it yourself. And so anyway, to say a little bit about the scene with David and Carmen Ejogo, the beautiful, who plays Coretta Scott King in the first film, the first scene, just want to talk a little bit about what's off the page. Because what you see in that scene is all of the subtext that we created around the trash bag. I don't know if you saw the trash bag. So the trash bag was like its own movie, right? Because the trash bag is the subtext. The trash bag is what Mike Nichols called the business of the scene. They got to have some business that contributes to what the core narrative drive of the scene is. And so in that scene, as collaborators, we're trying to figure out what is the blocking. Blocking is how they're moving, right? The choreography between camera and the bodies of the actors. And so when we're trying to, in that small space, trying to figure out what the blocking is, it could just be she opens the door, she opens the refrigerator and gets something and pours a drink and then moves across just to give it some movement. But because Dave and I have such a great shorthand and because we had done all of this other work, we were able to go a little layer below in the blocking and let the blocking mean something to the main action, like why does he not know where the paper bag is, where the plastic bag is? Why is he looking through drawers in his own house? It speaks to what they're talking about. He's never there. so he does not know where she keeps it. So she has to cross, open the drawer, and give it to him. He kind of takes it. And so even if you're not conscious of it, an audience is feeling tension or uncertainty or whatever, and those are just some of the little pieces of business that you should look for. You can read up on Mike Nichols was the genius at business. But that type of stuff, you're always mining for that with your actors. The actors have the best ideas about business. Sometimes a little wacky. But wouldn't I be doing like this? No, please don't do that during the scene. Just walk over and open the paper bag.
Ava, we've got about another minute here,
yes,
so
yes.
I
But
want
think about those things as you proceed.
All right, so this is for you, David. All right, you had ideas about Mr. King before you started. What did you learn along the way?
What I couldn't have accounted for was how heavy a burden it would feel to play him. I've only done this in two films, which is to stay in character the whole time. I did it on a film called Nightingale, a small film where I'm the only character in the film. And for 3 weeks, I stayed in character. And I did that because I was playing a guy in that film who, it used to be called multiple personality disorder. He was in a really bad place. And I chose to do that because I felt to be playing multiple personalities and then to be coming in and out of myself would just be too crazy. So let me just stay him for 3 weeks. So I moved out of my home. I have 4 kids. I thought, let me not have a crazy person around my kids. And I moved into an apartment, a friend's apartment, and stayed in character. And the thing that I found out doing that film was not that, method acting, if you like, I guess that's what we call it. What it does is just make the performance better, which I now know it does. But it was the fact that I never second-guessed my choices because I stayed in character all the time. I never had that. The thing you're battling as an actor all the time is the inevitable third eye. You have to have about 5 to 10% of your brain dedicated to technical awareness, where the camera is, don't bump into the furniture, all of that, which is counterintuitive to being completely in the character whereby you're just doing that, but you have to have that. Now, a bad performance is all dependent on how big the third eye gets. If it's 30%,
Brilliant.
You are watching someone who is demonstrating as opposed to being. If it remains 5 to 10, you are watching a technically proficient but hopefully completely organic performance. So having learned that on Nightingale, when I played Dr. King, we made the choice that was what it was going to be. The thing, and I know we're short on time, but just to illustrate what I'm talking about, by the time we got to the very last speech of the film, Dr. King had been told several times that if he makes that speech in front of the Capitol steps, he will be assassinated. There were people ready to kill him if after that 54-mile march he would. And I had such a weight of the fear of death upon me for 2 days beforehand. Literally, I was so close to saying, can we sweep the buildings and make sure that there's no one there? But it was too crazy an idea, so I didn't. But it was very real for me, to the point whereby at the end of that day of shooting, I was shocked. And I swear to you, this is the truth. I was shocked that I was alive. And that's how much this thing had sort of weighed on me. And that was the thing that, when you called cut, when you said it was a wrap, when we finished, people say, was it tough to let go? I was ready to drop that thing like a stone. I was done. And that was the thing that I just couldn't have anticipated.
Oh, my God. Well, that is a beautiful, beautiful description of the layers of consciousness with acting. You guys, 5 Spirit Awards for this film.
5 Spirit Awards.
5 Spirit Awards.
Nominations. We're happy with that.
I mean, nominations, not awards, but 5.
Yeah.
From your lips to God's ears.
Exactly. That was a slip, but honestly, I wish I could give you everything. I just give you my gratitude for having made the film. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
being there. I hope you got
you.
something
Thank you
from
very
it.
much.
Thank you.